For today's short stories, we have a group of DMs that all have a similar problem. They like to have an excessive amount of characters. For this first short story, the DM has to prepare for a huge encounter the night before. Let's throw a few hundred logs on the fire. I played in a D&D 2nd edition game at a local comic store. This was not long before 3rd edition came out. The DM was prepping an encounter for that night that for some reason needed 200 orcs, and he ended up spending like an hour rolling hit points for each individual orc. All 200 of them. To this day, I can't imagine what was going through his head. This same DM also came up with a homebrew rule for saving throws where you had to, for some strange reason, roll over a stat to save. This led to a ridiculous incident where a character had to make a con save to wake up from normal sleep and couldn't do it because his con was 18. First of all, why roll hit points individually? That is an absolute waste of time. Ignoring the fact that you could use averages or just roll via computer, how are you going to keep track of 200 orcs separately? You would be better off rolling mid-fight to see if an orc goes down or not. Secondly, shouldn't that house rule be backwards? And shouldn't you have to roll under instead of over? Let me know your thoughts below as we move on to the next one. For this next story, the DM decides that the entire prison gets a turn. It goes about as poorly as you think. Let's give the log a turn on the fire. So I was invited to a one-shot by a friend of mine who DM'd 5th edition D&D frequently. I had never been in a campaign of his, but I figured I'd check it out nonetheless. There were 2 other players, but their role isn't super important to the story. So this one-shot was centered around a breakout from a magical prison. The breakout starts, and initiative is called. No big deal, it makes sense to call initiative even if it's not technically combat yet, since it would establish a good flow to ensure everyone gets a turn to take action. However, what I was not prepared for was that everything in a 10-mile radius got a turn. The guards each got their own turn. The automatic defenses got their own turn. Each other prisoner got their own turn. By the time the DM finished rolling for all the initiative dice, there were at least 30 participants per round. Thus, given the amount of party members we had, it was mostly the DM rolling dice by himself, and each of us waiting an incredibly long time for our turn to come back around. In the end, we did succeed in breaking out of the prison, but the one-shot took 4 hours. As a note, there were only about 8 rounds in total throughout the entire one-shot. Thus, I feel like this is a great example of why initiative should be put into groups for NPCs and not each individual creature getting their own turn. It's really unfortunate when the DM doesn't think that far ahead and wastes the player's time. As a player, you do have the ability to speak up during these situations to make sure that your time isn't wasted. Trust me, the sooner you point out the issue, the better. You can save others from falling to such a fate. Lastly, we have a quick story about a DM who likes having way too many PCs. Let's throw a group of logs onto the fire. So I join a Monster of the Week game. Upon joining the server, there are 6 PCs, but more joined before the first session. At our first session, there are now 13 PCs with 9 of them on VC. At our second session, there are now only 8 PCs because people ended up leaving. The attendance stabilizes here, and as we play, we find out that the town we are in has a very extensive history. There are a lot of NPCs in this game with personal histories with each other, and they are all very high level. A few of us make a joke that it feels like we're the cleanup crew, like we're playing in the epilogue of another group's game. 1 month in, we join the VC for the day's session. DM says, "I've sent you all a link to a server. Join that VC." That VC is on a server for another game. Turns out, we were right, and now there are 21 PCs on VC. Some of the players are playing 5 different PCs, and they've been playing for a year. At this point, the game stayed merged, and our group must now start playing on a different day. This is just simply the worst. You think that you're playing your own game, and then you're told to join a larger game, and are also told to play at a time different from the agreed upon one in the beginning. I have no clue what is going on in this DM's head, and frankly, the whole situation seems confusing. Anywho, I'll just leave it at that. What do you all think about these situations overall?